World of Warcraft واحدة من أكبر MMORPG في العالم if not أكبر MMORPG يكزيستي في العالم. راح ترحب بالاكستنشن جديدة تاعها اللي هي World of Warcraft Dragonflight، واليوم راح نحكيو عليها. من قبل كل شيء السلام عليكم يا جماعة، نتمنى انكم تكونوا بيان، انكم تتمتعوا بالايام تاعكم وتتمتعوا بانكم تتبعونا وحنا نمدوا لكم all what we know all what we search and found and they communicate to us. ان شاء الله تكونوا بيان، ونتمنى تتبعوني مع الفيديو هذه اللي راح تكون فيديو شوية مميزة، لانه كان عندنا الحظ اننا نحكيو ونطرحوا اسئله على الديفز تاع World of Warcraft Dragonflight دايركتلي. كنا في انترفيو معاهم وتمكنا من انه نطرحوا لهم بعض الاسئله اللي الكوميونتي ديجا سقساتنا عليهم وهما جاوبوا عليها، وربي ان شاء الله دوك نعطي لكم من لهنا الاسئله تاعنا والجواب تاعهم اون دايركت. كالعاده جماعه ما تنساوش سبورتاكم انكم تتابعونا وانكم تلايكيو وتكومونتيو في الاخر تاع الفيديو، واذا عندكم اسئله خلاف حابين نطرحوها للديف حطوهم لنا هنا في الكومنت ونديروا المستحيل تاعنا. World of Warcraft Dragonflight هي الماسيف اكسبانشن اللي راهي جايه في الورد اوف واركرافت، راح تجي اكزاكتومون بعد شادولاندز، وراح هي على باز تانونسات في افريل 2022 وراح تتلونسا بربي ان شاء الله يتم الاطلاق الرسمي تاعها في 28 نوفمبر 2022 معناتها وراس معنات 6 ايام ابوبري. بيان سور حنا راح نديروا لايف تاعها بربي ان شاء الله في التيك توك، دونك نعولوا عليكم تكونوا التما تكنيك ما شاء الله راح تكون في الويكاند هذا نهار الجمعه. لا علينا نرجعوا للورد اوف واركرافت دراجون فلايت. هي في الورد اوف واركرافت دراجون فلايت راح تقدم لكم 3 مساحات ولا تقدر تقول مواقع جديده اللي هي Walking Shores، Oriental Plains، Azure Spain، عندك ثلدرزوس، وعندك فالدراكن اللي هي راح تكون الناتشورال سيتي تاع هذه الاكسبانشن. في الورد اوف واركرافت هذا ثاني راح يجيو فيتشرز جدد ثاني اللي هما ليفل رايزنج راح يوصل حتى ل 70 اللي كان هو مشرين كيف شادولاند الله اعلم لل 50. راح يكون ثاني كاين 2 تالنت تريز اللي هي اشجار الامكانيات ولا الكاباسيتيز اللي راح يكونوا الكاركترز تاعكم. عندك راح يكونوا نيو اكتيفيتيز ايتمز ميشنز سايد كويست اللي يكونوا بكل عندهم علاقه بالدراجون تاعك، والدراجون تاعك اللي نرجعوا له اللي هو راح تكون اكتيفيتي تاع دراجون رايدنج اللي راح تكون فيها رايسنج، راح يكون فيها نيو اكسبلوريشن. يعني هذا دراجون رايدنج راح يحلك بزاف 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 الاحتمالات الجدد انك تيجيزيها في عالم اللي ديجا كبير تاع وورد اوف واركرافت. كيما قلنا لكم حنا كان عندنا الحظ اننا حكينا مع الديفز دايركتلي وبوزينا لهم بعض الاسئله، طرحنا لهم بعض الاسئله اللي ديجا سقساتهم لا كوميونيتي من قبل، وحنا بالطبع كانوا ديجا عندنا اسئله من قبل. دوكو راح نحط لكم في الفيديو لهنا 4 من الاسئله اللي بوزيناهم ونحط لكم الاجابات تاع الديفز دايركتلي بربي ان شاء الله. وما نطولوش عليكم نبداو بالسؤال الاول. الاسئله كانت باللغه الانجليزيه بالطبع لان الديفز يتكلموا باللغه الانجليزيه، كانت على شكل مسجز دايركتلي وهما عندهم تما ريسبونسبل اللي عاود يطرح الاسئله. السؤال الاول هو كان hello رؤوف from DigitaleAnime Algeria got several questions and we'll start with the one burning the throat of everyone. Will Dragonflight have its own collector edition like the Shadowlands and 15th anniversary, the one I'm having by my right now? The answer was.
Then we have a question from Rauf. I hope I said your name right. He has several questions, and we'll start with the one burning the throats of everyone. Will Dragonflight have its own collector edition, like the Shadowlands and 15th anniversary one that I have on my right?
Yes, so we have a physical collector's edition. I think it's pretty limited in quantity, and I'm not sure it's available everywhere. So our PR team might be able to get back to you with more details on the availability. But in addition to the physical collector's edition, we also have a digital deluxe edition. We have heroic edition, an epic edition, and then the standard edition. And with those, you'll get different in-game items and rewards for the collector's edition that you want. So special mount, pet, and those sorts of things. So we have different things for players based on how they like to play and if they want those collector's items.
The second question was happy to hear this because لأنه جاوب على سؤال من قبل. So another one, how does the team expect to make Dragonflight an easy introduction for newcomers and a familiar game for old players? The answer was.
Yeah, this has actually been a big focus of Dragonflight in general. We've really invested in a lot of the core systems of World of Warcraft. We've updated the user interface to make it a much more modern and customizable UI. Eric was just telling you a little bit about professions. We've revisited that system as well to make sure that it feels great for all players. And then our talent system is another big thing that we've revisited as well. These are all core gameplay mechanics of World of Warcraft. So new players will be able to jump in there with about the same experience and knowledge level as the existing players have. Now, of course, for players that are familiar with the game, you will understand generally what a lot of this means. You can probably go a little deeper quickly into these systems than perhaps a new player would. But there's no better time to jump into World of Warcraft as a new player other than an expansion. What happens when an expansion occurs is there's more levels to gain. There's new items to achieve, and everyone sort of is leveled on the playing field. Like a new player and an existing player, by the time you get to max level, you'll be relatively equivalent in terms of power and ability. So you're not behind, you're not below the curve on that. Another thing we've done is with our prior expansion, we actually included in a new player experience called Exile's Reach. This is a way to help you sort of understand the basic mechanics of the game and not just throw you into something complicated and confusing right away. You're just marooned on an island and you need to find a way to help you and your allies get off of the island in a quick little about a couple hours of gameplay so that you can really learn what World of Warcraft is, how to play, and feel a little bit more comfortable going into it. So that experience still exists, but then when you go into the current expansion content, you'll be alongside everyone else at the same time.
I think the new talent system really shines here too in a couple of different ways. One is if you are starting with a higher level character, so you haven't been playing for a long time, you jump in and there's lots of different talents to pick, but we also have starter builds. So you can just grab one of those and immediately start playing. Later on, once you get more used to it, then you might start tweaking points around. You can save different loadouts really to swap around like Pat was talking about before. One of the actual main reasons that we wanted to rebuild the talent system was to sort of make the leveling experience more satisfying as well. So with the new talent system, every time you level, you're getting a new talent point. So starting at 1 and all the way through, you get to apply 1 point each time you level. So it brings us back to this point where you have something exciting to add, and you're kind of learning a little bit about your class, customizing it a little bit more as you go through that leveling experience, which would be really nice for anyone that's getting into the game for the first time or leveling a new character.
السؤال الثالث كان بوكو بليس على الدراجونز وكان هو about in-game part. I'm wondering, are there any limitations for dragon riding, and also will there be any special activities with dragons, and can we name our dragons? The answer was,
so dragon riding is definitely one of my favorite new features for the expansion, and there are limitations with it, but I think they're part of the fun of the system. So almost as soon as you get into the Dragon Isles, you're going to get your first Drake. There's, I believe, 4 that you can unlock. They each do have their own names. You don't get to name them yourself, but they are highly customizable with lots of different parts that you can collect out in the world. You can change their spines, their colors, their wings, their armor, their saddles, all sorts of things. So each one is incredibly customizable, and you can make them your own. Looking completely different from each other. And as far as those limitations go, when you start, they're capable of gliding, and they have a couple of abilities. They can launch themselves into the air or shoot forward. That's all limited by a resource called Vigor, which I believe you start with 3 of. But then as you explore the Dragon Isles, you find these what are they called? They're sigils,
the glyphs, right?
Yeah, glyphs. There we go.
Yeah.
You find these dragon glyphs spread around that you actually have to use your dragon riding skill to get to, because they're often up in the air. As you get those, you're actually unlocking progression through sort of a new talent tree that gives you new types of powers. You'll get more vigor over time, which will allow you to use those abilities more often, which means maybe getting more height, and you can use that height to dive down and get more speed and then zip up, and that'll allow you to get further faster. higher, which all becomes very interesting, exciting, because it allows you to travel really far. And, you know, these zones are built for this. They're huge. They have a lot of verticality to them. You know, the Waking Shores has these huge, you know, really cool pillars. We've had a ton of fun putting interesting things on those. For instance, if you're a gatherer, if you're a miner, you might find some ore perched up on one of those pillars, and you're gonna have to use your skill in dragon riding to get enough height, and then like dive down and land on one to grab it. There's treasures all over the place that might be on the side of a cliff, that kind of thing. So there's a ton of skill that you can build with these, as well as that progression, and that all allows this dragon riding to open up over the course of your experience, and really changes both leveling and end game outside in what is I think a really fun manner.
Yeah, another thing that we've added to, which I think is kind of cool, is the concept of like races, almost like PvP races. So we've set up a few courses with like rings you have to fly through to see who can do it the quickest. So you can challenge your friend to be like, hey, this was my time I got in this area. So there's some little fun, quirky things you can do in the Dragon Isles as well.
السؤال الآخر اللي كان من طرف تاعنا من عندنا هي last question for me, simply in your opinion what should the players, newcomers or old ones, what should they be prepared for, and if you have to recommend something in Dragonflight, what would it be? The answer was,
I mean, for me, it's just enjoy the experience. One of the things that's so great about World of Warcraft is the diversity of the players. That people like to do so many different things. I was just talking about pet battles, for example, and that's not, when you think of World of Warcraft, that's not the first thing you think about, but there's plenty of people who really enjoy things like that. Although I think, for most people, enjoying the story, the narrative of what is happening in the Dragon Isles, we've really leaned into that. We have the most cutscenes and in-game cutscenes we've ever had in an expansion before, so there's a lot of really good story to dig into around that. But once you do hit endgame, there's plenty of activities to do, whether it's Mythic Plus or raiding or PvP or just outdoor world content, dragon riding, glyph collecting, the profession system that Eric's been talking about quite a bit. There's just so much for you to explore and do. It really is, what do you want? What do you like to do? How do you want to play the game? I know for me personally, I really enjoy Mythic Plus, and I evangelize that to everyone I can, just because I like to see that community grow. That is a really fun game mode that has varying difficulty levels based on the keystone that you choose to do, and you work your way up, and you'll get better gear, better rewards, and you start to get better and better at it over time. So it's definitely a very rewarding experience for me, and that's something that I really like to do with my little group of 5 people. We really are eager to dig into this for Dragonflight.
For me, I might say it's stop and take a moment to just take in the beautiful sights of the Dragon Isles. I'm definitely guilty of this. It's very easy to be like, oh, I want to be max level. I gotta start getting gear, jumping in dungeons and doing all these other things, and kind of just rushing through quests and not paying a lot of attention. But these zones are huge, and they're really beautiful, between the Waking Shores with these massive pillars and molten lava areas, and the Azure Span being this beautiful icy landscape. Just take a moment to look over these amazing scenes with further draw distances than ever before. You can view them from Drakeback as you fly around. It's really a beautiful expansion, and one that's worth stopping and enjoying the scenery in.
وبهذه كانوا هما الاسئله اللي طرحناهم على الداوز، وكانوا عندهم انه ريبونداو عليهم. بربي ان شاء الله يكونوا عجبوكم، باسكو حنا ليترالمون خيرنا الاسئله اللي طرحوا علينا بزاف في السوشيال ميديا تاعنا ولا في الويب سايت، وهزيناهم وحطيناهم دايركتلي لهنا. ان شاء الله يكونوا عجبوكم ويكونوا انتريساكم بالاكستنشن هذه جديده اللي بربي ان شاء الله كما قلنا لكم راح نديروا لها تاعها اللايف نهار الجمعه ان شاء الله. أبرصا نعول عليكم جماعة أنكم تسيبورتيونا في الكومنتس لتحتها. إذا عندكم أسئلة خلاف قولوا لنا، بربي إن شاء الله نديروا المستحيل تاعنا به نوصلوهم. وكالعادة نعود عليكم لايكس، كومنتس، بيان سور سبسكرايبز والشير بارتو، والسلام عليكم.